Welcome back. We had quite the weekend, didn't we? We started the season off with a massive bang. Some all time performances already and some new world records. Oh, I guess the record breaking just will not cease. We can say what we want about all the shoes and the coaching, whatever it is. I'm elated to be a part of this community. I love the sport of track and field, and this past weekend is one of the reasons why. Today's video will be a little different because it is the first video, and not everyone has kind of rolled out their team or even competed, and we'll probably get more as the week goes on. So I'm not gonna totally focus on number one performances. I'm just gonna focus on who were the best five performances, both through men and women this past weekend. May do the same for next week's video, which I'm planning to have out on Sunday. If not, it'll be our traditional recap format with the four leg philosophy. But let's get started because we had a lot that took place. And on the women's side, I want to get started right away with Kelly Euphoniama of East Carolina. And I feel that it's important to bring her up simply because she's been on this platform before. I spoke about her early last year because she was a freshman and she burst onto the scene in the 200, and she hasn't really slowed down. I think perhaps I'm more shocked that she hasn't transferred because she's at a quote unquote smaller school, but it's clear that things are working very, very well for her at East Carolina. She clocked a 714 in the semifinals there at Clemson, and then she pulled out of the finals. No sign of injury news, so we're hopeful there, but 7.14 in the second week of January. Wow. Right out the gate, a bang. 714. Again, we're to that point where it's going to take under 7-1 to be considered a serious threat for a title. But 7-1 in itself is still an impressive mark, especially when it's how you begin your season. So shout out to Kelly Ufodiyama of East Carolina with that 714 and for getting us started. Then we have in the 60 hurdles on the women's side, Emmy Scales. And it's already starting off to be a strong hurdles year because of her mark. It took us all the way until conference championship season time last year for us to see a sub 8 performance in the women's 60 hurdles. We got one in weekend one. Emmy Scales of Kentucky, ironically in the SEC, 799, and she actually did it twice in the semis and in the finals. So the fact that she did it twice in one weekend is a very positive sign. And it's an indication that Kentucky is really back to being able to produce high level hurdlers. It's been a while. We can't forget that they've had Jasmine Camacho Quinn, they've had Kendra Harrison, and a host of others, but we're still waiting to see someone get back to that level. In a time like this now, that automatically says that she's going to be in it to be the next big hurdler for Kentucky. I know that the coaching staff there was probably elated to see that time because she's had that great skill set for a while, and things just seem to kind of come together in one meet early in the season. 799, nothing just to be disappointed with in her performance. Just fantastic early. Now let's move, and I can't believe I'm doing this early to a relay to the 4x4 Georgia women's team, and really it's two 4x4s. Coach Carol Smith Gilbert clearly has a fan in me on this channel. Watched her go from being an assistant at Penn State to being an assistant at Tennessee to being the head coach at Central Florida to being the head coach at USC and to being the head coach now at Georgia. And at each stop, she's just done a phenomenal job of developing sprint talent. In fact, I feel like each stop she gets better as as a coach. Just and that's a testament to her willingness to learn and to make sure she includes around her a great staff to support. because you can't do everything as the head coach and you can't do everything as the sprints coach either. So things are going incredibly well for Georgia. They have so much depth that they had two teams this weekend run sub 329. That's correct. Two teams that ran 328. So all that energy we've been giving to Arkansas the past couple of years because of how great they were, it's now time that we shift it over to Georgia because it looks like it's going to be that type of year for them. The fact that you have two teams that could run a 328, quite impressive, I think. 328.16 is the A score. Hats off to the coaching staff, specifically to Coach Carol Smith Gilbert, for not only developing these athletes, but they've done a great job with recruiting. It's funny that we mention, the great recruiting, but and we say it sort of haphazardly, but we can't ignore the results are there. She's done a phenomenal job of recruiting athletes and developing them. I mean, we just saw what Aaliyah Butler did for the past couple of years, and I remember when that was Aaliyah Butler's choice, there was a little grumbling on social media and in many of those private groups that were saying, why not Florida? Why not LSU? Why not Arkansas? Why not USC? She picked Georgia, and look at how that's turned out for her. And now we're looking at a school that has two teams that can run sub 330. So what happens when you get the best of both? And that's right now in January. So is this a team going to be a group that runs 324, 325 later in the season? They may need it because although Arkansas is not the talk of, the town, it's Arkansas. They'll eventually rear their head and remind everyone why you think of them the way you do. But for now, we need to give credit to where credit is due, and that credit is going to the University of Georgia. And moving to the field, we'll look at the high jump and we'll look at Emma Gates of Arizona. Hats off to the Arizona coaching staff because they had three athletes this weekend that jumped over 6 feet, including their super freshman, Kaya Crook. And some of you were probably wondering, as I saw some comments on Facebook, why Arizona? Why not? They have three athletes jumping over 6 feet, and Emma Gates leads the country now with 6 feet 2¼ inches, 1.89 meters to begin her season. And the other teammates both jumped 6'1". You're looking at a school that may have three athletes that are all Americans in one event. Anytime you have that level of depth in a field event, that's a very positive sign in regards to the ability to develop talent and also recruit talent. Emma Gates, way to get us started. I look forward to seeing what you do because this is an event to me that's a little bit open. No remaining high jumper has been consistent. I mean, you have Timmy Top Adeshina of Texas Tech. You have a great high jumper at Arkansas. It's there's the potential for some other big performances, but Emma Gates got us started early, right? And now moving to the long jump, we have Sophia Beckman of Illinois. Petros Kiprianou clearly knows how to recruit and develop, and this is no shock because Sophia Beckman was such a huge get for him, and she continues to be a huge get as she begins her season in the long jump with a jump of 22.4¼ inches, 6.81 meters. That would have won the title last year, even though Alexis Brown had one of those incredible years. But this is how we're getting started, and Sophia Beckman already has All American honors to her name. She's looking for that title, and she's getting things started right. That is a great performance this early. And Illinois clearly seems to have everything going their way when it comes to the jumps. They, like Arizona, have a really deep long jump squad. Now, moving to the men's side, we had a stunner of a weekend in regards to the sprints. I'm going to start with the 60 first. I know all of us want to get to the 400 because of what we saw. And yes, I'm going to talk about him later and what he did. But I also want us to be very aware of what we saw in the 60-meter dash from Tennessee. That was remarkable. Tennessee speed. They have three athletes under 6'6", two under 6'5". Devontae Howell ends up being the winner for Tennessee at Clemson, running a 6'49". His teammate Trenard Folson also ran a 6'49", but Howell's 6'49" was just a step faster. Howell will be representing the Cayman Islands. This is an insanely fast young man. He burst out of the blocks, and so did Trenard, excuse me. But the fact that he was able to leave his teammate Tamars McCullum, who was competing at the World Championships last year in his dust a little bit, to run a 6'49" in this early, this also is something he's probably ready to run sub 10, maybe even sub 9'9". But to have that level of depth, I think we're looking at perhaps a pretty remarkable group at Tennessee. We don't know what the Texas Tech squad is going to do. We'll learn this coming weekend what they're capable of. Because I'm pretty sure all the great programs, the Arkansas, the Texas Techs, the Floridas, the LSUs, the USCs, they saw that because this performance from Tennessee is all over social media. No one has not talked about it. So hats off to them. In the 400, let's just give this young man credit, Jonathan Sims, by way of Texas, from the University of Georgia, which, okay, Coach Carol Smith Gilbert, you're really doing it with your men quarter milers. She's won the past two in a row. Christopher Morales Williams technically broke the world record, but didn't have, I guess, sanctioned blocks. But his time can never be forgotten. William Floyd won last year, and he's back on this team. And then you have young City, I believe his how you pronounce his name. He's also a freshman competing on this team. He ran a 32:10 in the 300 meters. So there's another freshman that we haven't even seen yet. But Jonathan Sims ran 44:62. And that's not a typo. There wasn't a timing error. You've seen it on social media. If you are following on Reddit in the track and field Reddit section where I'm at, it's been on Twitter, it's been on Instagram, it's been on Facebook, it's been on TikTok. Everyone is talking about that 44:62. There is no way you cannot talk about that time for someone who just literally turned 19 a few days ago. He is a brand spanking new freshman. Granted, when he was a sophomore, he ran that low 45 time, breaking Obea Moore's sophomore record, and we knew that he was off to the races. But unfortunately, he ran into a myriad of injuries. But he's rebounding well at Georgia. 44:62. That breaks the U20 record. I am stunned because his freshman time in his first race is better than any time Michael Johnson ran indoors. Michael Johnson's former world record was 44:63. Karan Clement broke it with that 44:57 in 2004. I remember watching that from my dorm. No, that was 2005. I was a freshman then. Just stunning performance by this young man. And we knew that he was capable of greatness. But in January, what is he going to do later in the season? And what does this say about Georgia? Things are just really happening for Coach Carol Smith Gilbert. He also split a 44-3 on that relay, and it didn't include any of his super freshman teammates. So I'm curious to see what they do later in the season. That's just such an impressive mark this early. Then we have Leonard Mustaine of Florida A&M, which is developing quite the program. Florida A&M returning back to their roots of developing great talent from the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s. Florida A&M was a program to be reckoned with, and for a while, they kind of went under the radar. They are clearly back because he is having a great season. He had a great season last year. 765 in the 60 hurdles is impressive. We're already at 7.6. We knew how hard it was to qualify for the national meet last year, and I think this year it's going to be equally hard. This is a great group of hurdlers. I'm curious to see who will step up to compete with him. He wasn't someone I thought was going to be performing a time like this early. 765, and I'm quite positive he could have lowered it even more. You had Liesba Brown, another super freshman, run 768 as a freshman. We already got two guys under 7-7 in one race in the first major weekend of the season. This is going to be a great event come championship time. I'm really hoping we can see a 7-4. Will we see a 7-3? I don't think there's anyone capable of that right now. No one has put that out there with the speed and the technique at the same time to make me think that someone is going to run a 7-3. I could be wrong. We'll see. There's more to come this weekend, but what we're going to do is make sure we recognize Leonard Mustari of Florida A&M. In the long jump, someone from the Maize and Blue School, Quincy Isaac, and another freshman, Quincy Isaac of Michigan. And that was a surprise when he committed to Michigan. It's been a while since they've had great male long jumpers. And I'm saying a while because the last time I remember them having great male long jumpers, I was a student at Eastern Michigan. And I was covering the Eastern Michigan track team for the Eastern Echo. And that is the last time I remember them having pretty good long jumpers. It's been a while. In fact, his performance of 25 feet, 9.25 inches, or 7.85 meters is number two all time already. He's almost at 26 feet indoors as a freshman in his first meet. He was a huge get for them last outdoor season because we know that many of the SEC and Big 12 schools were trying to recruit him. But he stayed in state because he went to what is a powerhouse in the state of Michigan, East Kentwood. And here he is, just performing at a very high level. And I look forward to seeing what he does. I know I don't really want to put that pressure on a freshman, but 25, 9.25 this early says that you want to compete with the big boys now and that you think you're capable of doing so. So we'll see. And then in a weight throw, Ryan Johnson of Iowa. Again, I said this last week in our preview that the Big Ten is loaded with great throwing programs. You have your Ohio States, you have your Wisconsins, your Minnesota, your Nebraska, Michigan, getting back to having great throwers. And then you have Oregon added to that mix. And then you can't forget Iowa. Ryan Johnson was the Big Ten champion in the hammer throw. He returns to give us outstanding performances in the weight throw 81, 6.5, 24.85 meters. Yes, that's a number one mark, but what's more impressive is that he's over 80 feet in the first meet of he PR'd in his first meet of the season. And I don't think this is where he stops. This is going to be a competitive event this year. As I said in the preview, I don't think Tariq Robinson O'Hagan will just dominate the weight throw like he will dominate the shot put. I think the weight throw has a little bit of openness to it, so I'm curious to see who becomes the champion in this event. Ryan Johnson is putting his name in the hat early. And so that is the story of this past weekend. We have quite a few big meets coming up this weekend. There will be one at Texas Tech. There's a meet in Gainesville, a meet in New Mexico. It's a lot coming, and I would encourage you to keep your hands near your phones. There will be obviously be some recap videos throughout social media. And my hope is to be able to eventually one day do a Sunday live stream where we're just recapping the weekend, but I'm expecting to have the next video out next Sunday. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I really want to hear your thoughts about this weekend. If I made an error in schools or names, I am not ashamed to be corrected. If you call me out, I will apologize and make the correction. But to all those who support my channel, thank you, and I look forward to talking with you again next week.